Hello everybody, welcome to another Sunday comic book review video. I'm Ghost Critic and I hope you've read all your comic books for this past week, because I'm about to talk about all the books that I picked up on Wednesday. So a lot of you will probably already know what books I'm going to be talking about, but this video will of course be full of plot lines, storylines. I'll be revealing twists and turns and cliffhangers, so obviously spoilers are in effect. So you've only got yourself to blame if you continue watching any part of this video of books that you haven't already read yet. And I'm kicking off this week with Daredevil issue number 24 as the one that I least enjoyed out of my 9-book stack from the past week. And I have to say, I'm just not really enjoying this new storyline, Supreme. I get it. Charles Soule used to be a lawyer, so he's drawing on and playing with what he knows best. But it just doesn't make for that much of an interesting read, especially within the kind of superhero comic book genre. Dan Slott did it to much better effect, I think, with one of the earlier volumes of She-Hulk. But here, I just don't dig it. There's a lot of talking, there's a lot of law jargon going on, and they just kind of attach on the end of it a fight with Tombstone, which basically is just there to keep the reader interested in some respects. The title, this issue does bring Matt and Foggy back together after being estranged for quite some time. And it's interesting to see how well Foggy's life has been going without that whole Daredevil business being involved in his life. He's actually enjoying his Daredevil Matt Murdock madness life not being there anymore. So in that respect, it's nice to see those two guys back together again. They've been best of friends since back at law college and all that stuff. We have new artist on here, a guy called Alec Morgan, who I wasn't particularly familiar with before now. I kind of get a Sin City but in colour vibe from it, the way that he draws these characters. Maybe that's just me, or maybe now I've kind of gone to you guys, so now I've said this, it's like, oh yeah, I can see that now. Please let me know if you kind of get that vibe as well. There's a kind of little bit of 100 Bullets with is it Eduardo Russo are in here as well, which is again another little vibe going through it. But overall, I'm looking forward to this story ending, which apparently is going to be in next issue, which feels very abrupt to me. But then I thought, well, it's issue 25 is the next issue, which is usually a anniversary issue. It's usually a thicker book and they price it up a little bit more, so maybe Charles Soule will use those extra pages to effect in wrapping up this storyline. But I will be glad to see this over, and I just hope he'll return Daredevil to more of his kind of superheroing adventure, you know, packed with villains and action, more villains and action that you can shake a blind man's stick at. But for now, Daredevil just isn't doing it for me. And moving on to Doctor Strange, another Marvel title that isn't quite there, but still a fun enough read. We have issue 23 here, which is still tied in with the Secret Empire storyline, which I'm having nothing to do with. And we kind of left off last issue where our kind of unlikely band of heroes, because we've got Wilson Fisk in there as well, in a room full of magical artifacts that could be used against Baron Mordor to kind of turn the tide and break this dark bubble that's encapsulated Manhattan. But as Jason Aaron has kind of pushed this into the kind of dark Doctor Strange kind of mythology, using these magical artifacts come at a price, whether it be having to turn into a werewolf once a month, the possibility of gaining kind of brain tumours, or succumbing to greed and self-mutilation. We've already seen when we get this issue that the mask that Fisk used to get out of the last predicament in the last issue has already taken effect, as now he seems to be possessed by this kind of smoky apparition demon that's taking over and feeding off all his kind of hate and evilness, and the kind of unexpected help in kind of almost taking down this demon comes from some magical armour that is put on by, of all people, Ben Urich, who fights back this possessed demon of Fisk's. But by the end of this issue, Strange now has another unlikely ally in this demon that's taken over Wilson Fisk, as he's kind of the fight between them impresses the demon, and he realises that Baron Mordo and what he's doing, it doesn't reflect well on the demons. I don't know if that's quite the phrase I wanted to use, but he sees the danger that Mordo and all the power he's accumulating has on his own kind of bad doings, I guess. So decides to ally himself with Doctor Strange and Fisk and Spider-Woman and Ben Urich. But is even this going to be enough to take down Baron Mordor, as we get a small kind of fight scene, as we get little cameos from Luke Cage, Iron Fist and Cloak, who have already tried to take down Baron Mordo but fail miserably and become encapsulated in bubbles, just like we've seen Daredevil already being taken. It's a fun read. It's okay. It's unfortunate that it's tied in with the whole Secret Empire, which seems to have divided a great many people, though I have nothing to kind of reflect that on because I'm not reading any of it. But deep down here in my heart, I miss Jason Aaron and Chris Bachalo on this book, and I know it's unlikely that they'll come back. If they do, it wouldn't be for a very long time, as I think we've got new creative team of Donny Cates coming on to Doctor Strange, which I'm kind of excited about. I've heard big things about him. He's currently doing a lot over, I think, is it Aftershock Comics, with Baby Teeth. He did the Images God's Country, which the first issue was good. It didn't absolutely wow me, but everyone said how good it was, and I kind of kicked myself for not continuing with it. But that's something at least to look forward to, and hopefully this book will unshackle itself from this Secret Empire tie-in nonsense, and again become its own book and push Doctor Strange to further adventures of the magic and occult side of Marvel. We move on to the second issue of the new Spider-Man series, Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man. The first issue I really enjoyed and decided to put this book on my pull list. Issue 2, let's talk about it. Fortunately for lapsed readers such as myself of Spider-Man, the whole sister thing that was the kind of cliffhanger of the last issue was explained. Whether people who are still reading Spider-Man already knew about this or not, I was glad that Zdarsky managed to give us a little bit of history on this. but not before we had kind of Ironheart and Spidey playing the whole misunderstanding each other game, having a little bit of a tussle before helping each other out. And it just felt with this second issue that Zdarsky, it was a little bit uneven in the storytelling, as it kind of went from the superheroes fighting each other to this history lesson about the Parker family and how this woman is not really Spider-Man, Peter Parker's sister. Then it went on to Spidey's coffee date with the woman he met from the last issue, to the reveal of Kingpin's possible involvement in this whole phone hacking Stark software thing. I'm willing to let this kind of story settle in a bit, but really Zdarsky needs to kind of rein the chaos back in, and not kind of throw everything at the wall at once, and seeing what sticks and what works, because I think this can be a very cool kind of lower tier Spider book where he has adventures that don't necessarily fit into what is going on in the Spider-Man universe. We can have introduced, you know, characters and villains of old and throw in some new ones at the same time. It's still fun enough for me to continue reading. I like having a Spider-Man title back on my pull list. Many years ago, I was a big fan of Spider-Man and used to have hundreds of comics of Spider-Man in my collection, which have all but disappeared now after I foolishly sold them all. But like I said, it's nice to have Peter Parker and his superhero identity, Spider-Man, back on my pull list. Moving on now, moving away from Marvel, onto one of my favourite Image fun titles. It's Scotty Young's I Hate Fairyland, issue number 40, and the gags, they keep a-coming, and I'm not complaining in the slightest, because this is such an entertaining, kind of laugh out loud type of book to be reading to alleviate maybe potentially crappy books or very serious tone books. We have Gertrude now on her next mission to hopefully escape Fairyland as she looks to gain the balls of redemption. And she meets up with yet more ridiculously over-the-top characters, not least Loveth Lovelord, who sets her main quest for these balls of redemption, setting her a seemingly impossible labyrinth to get through and to be met by the deadliest of dragons in the centre. And if she fails, what is her punishment? I guess for her is that she has to marry Loveth Lovelord, and the marriage gag runs throughout this book. As Gertrude makes her way through the labyrinth, she meets up with more crazy characters who help her out along the way, but on the proviso that she marries them. And Loveth Lovelord is looking down at all this, and he's not happy that she's getting all these marriage proposals, so does away with all these fellow suitors for Gertrude's hand in marriage. And it's just hilarious the way that he dispatches them one after another. Of course, Gertrude gets to the centre of the labyrinth, but there is no deadly dragon to fight. It is in fact Duncan. We've seen him in past issues, a young boy who has taken on this persona of a dragon by putting on this kind of dragon, I'd say cosplay kind of costume, and Gertrude just laughs this off and dispatches him quite quickly. But the unexpected twist of this is, as she grabs onto those balls of redemption, a transformation takes over our Gertrude, and it takes her back and converts her back to good Gert right from the very beginning, before all this crazy wackiness started and she was happy to be in Fairyland. This was the place of her dreams before she got before she got trapped in it, and for however hundreds of years she's been there now. So what is going to be Gertrude's response to this now that she's back to her good pure ways? Will she be able to now leave Fairyland behind? I hope not, because as I said, this is a so fun but hilarious at times. It always leaves me with a big smile on my face, wondering, well, what is going to happen next? Another fun, entertaining book comes from DC this time. It's Peter Tomasi's Super Sons, and we're up to issue number 6. The start of a new storyline, Planet of the Capes, Part 1, where we get, I guess, a tie-in with Teen Titans. I don't think I'll be getting it if like other parts are in Teen Titans. I'll just stick with Super Sons. I've not read any of the new run of Teen Titans, so I'm not particularly interested, but I do love this book as Robin and John, Superboy, take to the streets of Metropolis to fight crime and do good. But as we know from these two characters, they have very different ways in this superheroing game. Robin is the very dark, serious guy who wants to put the fear of God into everybody, while John as Superboy just wants to kind of help people out and ensure their safety and do good deeds. And here lies the ever-present humour to this title that Tomasi has brought to it. But he does it so well in that he still managed to blend in the kind of the drama and the danger to this title, as well as the introduction of the Teen Titans into this issue, who themselves are on their own mission, tracking down this kind of mysterious energy signature reading that they're getting. And as soon as the Teen Titans turn up, Robin ditches poor Superboy for his main team, leaves him behind to go and continue this mission, leaving John to kind of make his way back home to meet his parents' curfew time. But I don't think he will be keeping to that curfew, as the Teen Titans, along with Robin, are attacked by the Time Commander and his new team of villains, and things just don't fare well with the Teen Titans and Robin as they are dispatched quite quickly by this villainous team. And it looks like Robin will be depending on John's help, not just to help out the Teen Titans and go kind of beat up, I guess, this villainous team, but I think Robin might need help up the stairs, as the Time Commander has aged Robin to an old, frail man. Again, just a great, fun, fast-paced story. The art and colours on here are fantastic for this type of book. It's fun, it's bright, it's vibrant. The colours on here by Sanchez are just spot on. It's a teen comic book, fresh, youthful vibe to it that I just don't know. I can't imagine this book now being drawn and coloured by anyone else and keeping up this fresh vibe to it. I just have a lot of fun with it. It's a great book, and long may it continue, and I hope at least Tomasi stays on with it to keep this these two and their unusual relationship together, the snarkiness, the banter that the two have together. Great stuff. Moving on now to Dark Horse and issue number 16 of Department H. And over the past 15 issues along the way, we've seen how the murdered character of Harry Hardy's life has been depicted from the perspective of all these potential murderers. But it's in this issue that we actually kind of see it through the eyes of Harry. even if it is only through the kind of his journals, interviews and kind of magazine articles. But it's interesting to kind of see his side of things, from his childhood and how he got interested in this whole kind of archaeological, scientific adventures that he has, how he brings his team together, again the scientific adventures that they all go on, his thoughts about his family, and you see another side of Harry and his passion and commitment to his goals. And you kind of feel for the guy, despite all the kind of bad things you've heard about him from all the other characters in previous issues and their flashbacks. Do we get any closer to who's killed him? I don't think so, but I'm kind of letting that go now, and I'll wait until it is actually revealed. But it's by the end of this issue that we kind of get thrown a bit of a curveball as we jump to the present, where our teams that have kind of been split into two make it to this underground cave, and it just seems that part of the group are giving a human sacrifice, sacrificing one of their own team members to this giant sea turtle, and I'm just like, what the hell is going on now? Matt Kindt's imagination is just amazing, and I love the way this story is unfolding, revealing more unexpected storylines, adding layers upon layers of kind of richness to this this universe that he's created here. I can't get enough of it, and I love Matt Kindt's art, on top with Charlene, his wife, helping him out along the way. But just great stuff as always from Department H. Who knows how much longer this book has got to go, but I will enjoy every issue that is left to be had. So we're up to my top 3 titles now, and it was tough putting these in order, but I had to at the end of the day, and it's no surprise that they do all come from Image Comics. And I'm kicking off at number 3 with A Royal City, issue number 5, another of the books by Jeff Lemire that he's pumping out at the moment. And Lemire closes this first story arc on kind of somewhat of a somber note. As we have the father who's in a coma but appears to wake up at the start of this book, but in fact it's this kind of out-of-body experience with Tommy, our kind of dead son, brother to a lot of the characters, leading him off to see what is happening with all his family members and what their lives are up to at the moment. As we see first kick off with Pat, the brother who has come back to his home, his kind of birth home where he was brought up after, you know, living the high life in the big city, being a big writer who's struggling with his next book, and we see him getting a call from his estranged wife who has decided to come be with him in these troubled times. We then move on to Tommy's mum, obviously the father's wife, and we see her infidelity, which the father kind of already knew about already, but I'm sure it's still heartbreaking to actually see it going on. We move on to Tara, one of the sisters. She has kind of left and separated her husband and has had to move back to the family home, and the kind of history that comes with it for Tara, and having been there as a kind of babysitter to Tommy, and this seems like a more of a step back for her than moving forward with her life. We move on to Richie, who's kind of like the black sheep of the family, I guess, and not just ruining friends' lives, but he is kind of trying to ruin family as well, as he's breaking into his father's shed to grab some radios that his father has accumulated over the years to sell and hopefully pay off this debt he owes to some of the more unscrupulous characters of Royal City. But it's kind of like the father's reaction to this, where it's just kind of like, oh, what have you done now? And his fatherly love, you know, however bad his children kind of screw up, he'll be there to help in any way he can, and he kind of pushes the kind of apparition that Richie can see, the version of Tommy that he can see, to tell him to take certain ones that are going to get him the most money. So even in this kind of out-of-body experience, the father still feels protective of his family. And it's by the end of this that the father does actually eventually wake up out of his coma and just really wants to go home. But again, there's another twist at the end of this book, as the reveal of this teenage girl identity that turned up in the last issue at the diner, when Pat had a little bit of a conversation with her, and we see and we wonder how this is going to fit into the whole family drama, as she confronts Pat on his way back to pick up his wife and lets him know that he's her uncle. And you wonder, well, whose daughter is she then? And I guess I'm assuming it's Tommy's. I mean, we've seen various kind of iterations of Tommy at different stages of his life, but we don't actually know when he died or even how he died. So that's the only person I can think of that this could be the daughter of. But again, it's another layer of intrigue that Jeff Lemire has added to this great family drama that has a kind of fantastical, supernatural vibe to it. But again, this book, so personal to me. I get so much out of this. I love Lemire's art on this. I'm glad he's done the whole thing himself. I'm happy that this is going to take a little hiatus, clearly for Lemire to catch up for the next storyline, which I believe takes us back into the past when Tommy was alive. So we'll get more history of that, more story of that, and how this family, I guess, eventually broke down and became the dysfunctional unit it is now. Just missing out on pick of the week was another Jeff Lemire pen book. It's Descender issue number 22 that begins this Rise of the Robots event that he's beginning. And it's tension, it's action, it's suspense and surprises all the way. From Dr. Kwan's fight for survival against Tim 22, that's not only shocking as Tim 22's head is ripped off by Dr. Kwan, hopefully putting pay to his kind of villainous robotic ways, but it kind of leads us to this path where we don't really know where Kwan's loyalties lie, as we have Telsa still kind of falling through this ocean, drowning, and will he actually end up helping her and rescuing her? On the other side of the storyline here, we've got on the Machine Moon, the home of all these robots. They are preparing to attack as Adam, the kind of brother of Tim 21, finds himself and his crew faced with this kind of impossible odds where they're in this kind of tiny spaceship and the war bots have been released. This just seems like a suicide mission of epic proportions, but with the arrival through a kind of shift space of the UGC fleet, will this kind of UGC fleet army be enough to turn the tide? And you kind of get towards the end of this and you wonder, are they actually going to be needed at all, as the robots go down another shift hole and disappear to wherever, ready to take on and start this big war, as their home planet explodes in the wake of their leaving. This book just didn't let up. It was thrilling stuff to kick off this kind of event that Lemire is doing, but I just hope he can keep this momentum up, and Newgen can keep delivering the fantastic art that we've had issue after issue. So looking forward to this storyline, and what Lemire is going to bring, and whose side am I going to fall on as a reader, as both sides have shown kind of a rather unscrupulous and rather dark sides to themselves. Or can we, along with Tim 21, somehow get some sort of harmonious play going together between the robots and the humans? But I've really enjoyed this book, and it's ramped up to, I hope it's not a conclusion. I hope Lemire has a lot of stories left for this book still to tell, and that this kind of rise of the robots isn't kind of a precursor to the end of this title. So I have to say, I was very surprised in myself that I made this pick of the week. It's the first issue of a mini-series, kind of offshoot of its main title, and giving the kind of artist Michael Lark a well-deserved rest. It is a Lazarus X plus 66, issue 1 of 6. And it's Rucka and new writer on this title, Troutman, telling a side story about the Daggers. These are the kind of elite of the elite kind of army that the Carlyles, one of the ruling families of this Lazarus universe, uses as a tool of destruction, but is run by the Lazarus herself forever. Once you've kind of finished this book, or if you've not read this book yet, think Full Metal Jacket, the kind of training opening sequences of that film, but take it to the extreme, as we have the setup of these kind of 100 men and women that have volunteered to train to be a dagger. They've all had many years of combat, being in the wars, fighting for the Carlyles. They've all had their kind of education and seen death and destruction as they've gone along. But that is nothing to what they are going to be put through to become a dagger. The training kind of goes three ways. You either win, you die, or you give up. As we see it, the storyline focused on this character, Casey Solomon, who didn't actually volunteer for this. She was chosen by the Lazarus forever, which kind of immediately sets this character apart from everyone else, and sees her as an outsider, someone who shouldn't be here, who doesn't deserve to be here. So she has more to prove than anybody who has volunteered. And if they've been through hell in the past, through all their kind of combats and the wars they've been through and the battles, that was just a walk in the park to what they experience in this training issue, I guess. As the numbers dwindle, as people drop out, as people get killed, the challenges get more difficult and more brutal. This isn't kind of climbing up walls, swinging along ropes and jumping through tyres. This is hand-to-hand combat. This is knife combat. This is live rounds combat. And if you get injured, if you get paralysed, if you get killed, well, you are out. But in this issue we see Casey not only excelling in everything that's put in her way, but we see her also being there for her comrades, despite their feelings for her. She is that kind of voice of reason in the shitstorm that's going on around, making sure that people that she in herself values and wants by her side don't give up and continue. And it's just from the first to the last page, everything just was pitched so perfectly, and really sets up this interesting new layer to the Lazarus universe. And although you know, you read the back matter in this by Michael Lark, and he says that, you know, it's interesting to kind of see what happens to other characters that aren't necessarily the main characters, but not. And it's like everything that's in this story may not be incredibly important to the main storyline, but everything is relevant and needs to be, I guess, consumed. The new artist to this book, Steve Lieber, is no slouch either. It just feels right. He has this grim, brutal style to this book that just makes it that much more of an interesting read. No, Michael Lark isn't there. He's taking his well-earned rest for the main series, but Lieber is a perfect substitute for this, and carrying on the kind of Lazarus torch. So yes, we have this mini-series bringing another rich layer to the world of Lazarus, and I enjoyed this the most. What did you think of it? Did you pick up Lazarus? Are you picking up the main series as well? How did you think it fared? Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of the books that I read, and maybe let me know about some books that you read as well down there. Give this video a big thumbs up, and if you're new to my channel and you liked it, you like what you saw, you want to hear some more, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything else, and you'll also get a shout out in Wednesday's video. Until then, thank you for watching. Bye bye.